everybody, I'm Vera Stewart and welcome to the VeryVera Show. You know, fall is such a great time of year. There's just so many things going on with family and friends. And I started thinking about that cast iron skillet. You know, the one that's in your pantry that's either rusted or has collected dust. Well, tonight we're going to revitalize it. I'm going to show you how to take care of it, how to cook with it, and we're going to make 3 wonderful dishes. The first one I'm going to do tonight is a tortilla pie that's layered that was just going to look so great because you're not messing anything up other than this skillet. You're going to serve it and everything. And then I'm going to do a dessert that is like a big pancake covered with apples. We're going to do a wonderful sour cream and brown sugar sauce that you put over it when it's done. And then finally, I'm going to use the biggest pan I've got, cast iron. We're going to do a pizza with Brussels sprouts, 3 different kinds of cheeses, crispy bacon, and I think I might put a little bit of chicken on it. So 3 great recipes, all done in your cast iron skillet. So let's get started with this triple-decker tortilla pie. And I love to always remind you that whenever you're doing something with a cast iron pan and it's going to end up in the oven, be sure to have a towel or a mitt or something on the handle to remind you that when you go to touch it again, it's going to be hot. All right, so right now it's at room temperature. I've got a 10-inch floured tortilla, and I like to use the whole wheat for this, but you can use the corn or the flour. And then I've taken a rotisserie chicken that I picked up at Fresh Market, which also makes this recipe so easy because you don't have to cook the chicken or anything. And then I'm just going to add a can of enchilada sauce to this. And you can buy the spicy or the mild, and this is actually the mild flavor. And then you could add whatever other ingredients you wanted to that. I'm just going to mix this together. And I shredded the chicken, and I've got both the white meat and the dark meat in here. So that looks just right. Now we're going to start the layering process. So I'm going to take half of this mixture and add it to the shell. And while I'm doing this, I've got my oven preheating to 450 degrees. So you do want to get that started because that's a pretty high temperature, much higher than normal. All right, so just evenly distribute that. Now I've got Monterey Jack cheese. I'm going to take about half of this, and this is a cup, so about a half a cup on this first layer. And I love to shred this myself, and then it's just really doesn't stick together, and it's nice and fluffy. Now we're going to do the second layer, doing the same thing again. And I always love to comment when this is something that you can do with the children. And, you know, in my years in catering, I was always looking back through old recipes and trying to establish what I could revitalize. It was maybe a recipe that had been done 20 years ago that I could reintroduce. But the other thing I really love about this recipe is that it's using an unusual serving dish. Instead of just doing this on a pizza pan, you know, bringing out that cast iron skillet and letting that not only be what you cook it in, but also what you serve it in. It could really be cool for a casual, you know, supper out on the patio this time of year. Okay, so the cheese has been layered. Now we're going to top it with the 3rd tortilla shell. And as I said, this is going to go in a 350-degree oven for approximately 8 to 10 minutes, just until everything gets hot through. The chicken is done. We just want the cheese to melt. Then, when it's time to serve it, we're going to cover the top with some freshly chopped romaine lettuce. I've taken cherry tomatoes and cut those in half, and then I've diced an avocado, so it's going to be really cool looking when we serve it. So I'm going to get this in the oven, and when we come back from the break, I'm going to get started on another skillet with butter, apples, sugar, a wonderful pancake batter, and it's what is called a Dutch baby, apple Dutch baby dessert. So come back with me in just a few minutes. Welcome back, and we are cooking up a storm in cast iron tonight, and I have got 2 tablespoons of butter, and I've just added a great big Gala apple. And we're going to saute these apples down until they're kind of halfway tender, maybe about 5 or 6 minutes. And to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. So, yum, yum. This is going to be an apple Dutch baby, which is actually kind of a up north Pennsylvania type dessert. But the history of these cast iron pans really, graduated down south, along the years. I had a lot of fun doing a little bit of research on cast iron in preparation for this show. And at the end of the show tonight, I'm going to give you a little bit of an education about taking care of them and looking after them and why they're so treasured as family heirlooms, because they last forever. And actually, the more you use them, the better they get. So we're going to let those cook. I've got them on about a medium heat, and I'm going to get started with the batter. So for the batter, we're going to take 4 eggs, and this is almost like a pancake batter. So you could do a lot of different things to it. This time of year, people like to mix like pumpkin and things like that with apple. So if you wanted to do introduce another flavor, you could do that. This is 4 eggs, and these are large eggs. And I'm going to add to that a cup of, first we'll whisk those together. Then I'm going to add in a cup of whole milk. And this is just to get this process started. And then I'm using just a regular all-purpose flour, but here again, you could do whole wheat flour, whichever you prefer. And we'll just start adding this in a little bit at a time with the wire whisk. And here again, this is another recipe that if you've got a grandchild or a daughter or a son that really enjoys cooking, since you're not using an electric mixer, then it's just great to be able to show them how you can mix things up by hand, and it really works well. So the wire whisk just comes in really handy for this. I don't even know if people use rotary beaters anymore. I used to have one. I don't even know where it is at this point. Okay, then we're going to put in some great seasonings that go really well with apples, and that's nutmeg, cinnamon, and just a little bit of salt. So now it's really starting to look like fall. And see, those apples are looking really good over here, just about where I want them to be. And this recipe for the actual pancake part, you could incorporate just into plain pancakes if you wanted to. But I love the whole premise behind the show tonight, because it's the same utensil that you're using to cook it in is what you're actually going to serve it into. And I've found myself really loving to incorporate, cast iron with wood and baskets, and with the colors that you see in our kitchen tonight, the flowers that Flowers on Broad did for us. All these fall colors just work really well with this. Okay, those apples should be just about ready now, and I'm going to transfer those to that bowl. Okay, and now I'm going to add 4 more tablespoons of butter to this hot pan, and this is where we're going to pour in the pancake batter. So I'm going to let this get nice and melted, and then we'll start adding everything in. All right, so now I've got this wonderful batter. I'm going to turn the heat down, and we're just going to start adding this batter in, and it's going to puff up really pretty. It's almost kind of the same process that you use with the cobbler. All right, and now we're going to put those apples back in, and I love to just kind of sprinkle these around. And then this is going to go in a 450-degree oven, and it's going to puff up and be really pretty. I've got a wonderful sauce that goes on top of it. So come back with me after the break and we're going to get started on a delicious cast iron pizza. I'm at my desk and I'm getting all of my plans made for yet another dinner party. But you know, nowadays people are so into their diet and what's good and what's not and what they can eat and what they can't eat. And so a lot of times you can get really caught up in making sure that you satisfy all the dietary requirements of your guest. It certainly is important if someone has a very strict dietary situation that you don't want to serve, for example, seafood, if you know for sure that that guest has a seafood allergy. But something that is really important is if you're the guest and you've been invited to someone's home and you have a real strong allergic situation, I think you need to point that out. Otherwise, when you're making the menu, if someone just is maybe on a low-carb diet and you're serving pasta and bread and everything carb, just eat just enough to get by, but don't make a big deal out of what your dietary restrictions are. Hey, welcome back. And you know, my granddaddy would be so proud of me right now because I want to say that this gigantic skillet was his. And I remember it when we used to go to Atlanta to spend the night and we would do campouts in the backyard and he would always do something in the cast iron skillet. I wish I could remember what it was he was doing, but I know that it was done in one of these great big skillets. And as the middle of 5 children, I don't know who all got which skillet, but I'm hoping that this one was his. So we're doing a pizza tonight in this, and you can make your own pizza crust, or you can buy a partially prepared crust, or you can use the one that's in the can, which is what I've done here. So I've got my pan ready with the pizza crust, and now I'm just going to take a fork and make some marks in the bottom so it won't puff all up while it's baking. And in the meantime, I cooked 6 pieces of the fresh market style bacon in the frying pan over here, and that's going to be part of the topping, but I'm going to use the drippings to saute a shallot and some garlic. So let's get that going. And I've got that on about a medium-high heat. And here's my clove of garlic. So we're going to just get that nice and sauteed in that oil. And then I'm going to add in Brussels sprouts, which this time of year are absolutely great to cook with. They are very plentiful in the grocery store and just are really nice, cooked well or even still crispy. So I've got those cooking down in the pan, and I'm going to add a little bit of freshly cracked tricolor pepper, and then a good bit of kosher salt, because you really do need you know, some good salt on those Brussels sprouts. Oh, and this is, you know, you can do this as a vegetarian pizza with just all this and the cheese. But I think I'm going to add a little bit of chicken. You know, I used chicken in the first recipe, and I bought a whole rotisserie chicken at Fresh Market, and I left out just enough to put a little bit of chicken on the pizza. All right, so while that's cooking down, I'm going to get started with the inside of the pizza. So let's go ahead and put a layer of the shredded chicken. And then this is going to use 3 different types of cheeses. I've got a Fontana cheese, I've got provolone cheese, and then I've got a domestic Parmesan. So I've used them in 3 different ways. I bought the Fontana cheese already in a block, and then I shredded it myself. So you've got a nice chunky cheese here. So evenly distribute that around. And then the provolone cheese, I'm just going to layer the slices, and we're just going to layer it around. And I've got 5 slices here, so it should go all the way around. Well, actually 4. So that should work just great there. And then the domestic Parmesan, Fresh Market always has grated up, ready for you to pick up right there in the, in the deli. So let's check on these vegetables. Looking really good. Those are just about ready to go. I'm going to add the bacon that I cooked on top. And while these vegetables cook down, we're going to go to break, and when we come back, I'm going to show you how to take care of these skillets, and we're going to see all the finished products. So come back with me in just a few minutes. Welcome back, and we've got a beautiful array not only of food but of some vintage cast iron skillets. And I know you probably have a bunch of those in your pantry too, or under the counter, so I want you to pull them out and use them. Try some of these recipes that are always available on our website, and be sure to let me know what you think of them. I love to get the feedback. But just a few minutes, let's talk about the cast iron skillet and how we take care of it. So first of all, you must respect it. You know, you heard me say my granddaddy would be so proud of me, so I want you to be sure that you respect that pan. Another thing is use it often. Don't be afraid of it. As you've seen tonight, it can be used for things other than just cooking. It becomes your serving piece as well. Clean it after each use, and you want to use hot running water only. Never use soap. You don't want to use soap when you clean it. And then scour it. If you happen to pull it out of the cabinet and it needs to be cleaned, you're going to use a little bit of kosher salt and just a brush or a good hard sponge to scour it. Then you want to dry it immediately. Store it in a cool, dry place. A lot of times you'll get a rust buildup if it's in a moist cabinet. Understand the seasoning of it. Once you've got it good and dry, you want to rub it down really well with vegetable oil on the inside and the outside. And then if you do have rust on it, this is going to mean that you need to redo that process another time. And then finally, the best way to keep it really well is to put it in an oven after you've oiled it for an hour at 400 degrees, and that just re-seasons it and gets that conditioned. That's what I'm going to be doing with this pan shortly. So let's look at what we prepared tonight. Our triple-decker tortilla pie is out of the oven, looks great. I'm going to top it with some freshly cut romaine lettuce. It's almost a meal in itself. We're going to sprinkle some cherry tomatoes on top, a few diced avocado. I just love the way this looks. And then you can either use a pizza cutter or a good sharp knife to cut this into pieces to serve. But that is a beautiful fall dish. All right, now we've got the apple baby dish that we did. It puffed up so pretty. And I want to just put a little bit of this in the bowl. It's a fairly rich dessert, but you want to make sure when you're serving it that you get plenty of the apples on top. And then while we were away for the break, I made the sauce that goes on top, which was sour cream and brown sugar. And y'all, you have got to make this sauce because you're going to end up using it for everything. It is delicious. So there is a wonderful fall dessert. And then finally, while we were on the break, I finished the pizza, got the Brussels sprouts and the shallots really good and cooked, topped those, put this in a 550-degree broiler setting on your oven, and it came to a nice golden brown. And as you can see, it's going to slice up really well. You can get about 8 slices out of this. And honestly, if you've not had Brussels sprouts cooked this way, you definitely need to try that. That's a really great way to serve pizza. I did put a little chicken on there, but you could have used red onions or red peppers or anything to kind of punch it up. You know, even some diced pineapple would be great on there. Tip for you, don't forget that when you're bringing this out and you're using it as a serving piece, that handle is going to be hot for quite some time. So you can actually buy little mitts that fit on that handle perfectly, or just take one of your pot holders and put it around it, maybe tie it with a piece of kitchen twine. And then I want to certainly remind you that this time of year I'm doing classes with children. You can check that out on our website at VeryVera.com. I want to thank Flowers on Broad for the beautiful flowers. And as always, our kitchen is so inviting. I wish you were here with me, but hopefully when you make these recipes, you'll think about me, you'll email me and let me know what you thought. But better than anything, I want you to remember to come back next Saturday. And remember, as always, no matter what you do, do it in good taste. And I cannot wait to taste this apple dessert. See you next Saturday.